The girl and her younger sister came to watch her boyfriend play basketball, but her eyes were deeply attracted by a player from the opposing team. She didn't even notice when her boyfriend came over to greet her. At this moment, that man also saw her in the audience, and with just one glance, she froze on the spot. In her distraction, she was accidentally knocked down by a foul, and Jin Yuan even subconsciously stood up. After many exchanges of glances, Jin Yuan wanted to look at her but didn't dare, so he pretended to tidy his hair with his shirt to secretly peek at her again. Unexpectedly later, he also happened to look at her under the excuse of drinking water. Their eyes collided once more, and in that instant, Jin Yuan only felt his heartbeat skip half a beat. After the game, a group of people agreed to go eat barbecue together. Jihu, who usually never liked to join in, surprisingly agreed to go this time. At the table, everyone was sitting together, raising glasses and joking, but Jin Yuan's chopsticks were accidentally knocked by a wine glass, while her boyfriend sitting next to her had no reaction at all. Just as she was about to call the waiter, Jihu across from her naturally handed her a new pair of chopsticks. Such an unintentional detail, yet it made Jin Yuan's heart ripple as if something was stirring. Since it was Jihu's first time joining the gathering, everyone curiously guessed his profession. Just as his friend gave a hint of a white coat, Jin Yuan blurted out the answer. It turned out that just a few days ago, when he was hungover, he had gone to a nearby pharmacy to buy hangover medicine. Seeing his anxiety, Jihu had kindly placed the medicine into his hand. After drinking it, he realized he hadn't brought his wallet. When he called his friend, they didn't answer, so he awkwardly said he would come back at night to pay. Then, turning around proudly, he remarked that it wasn't even medicine he had prescribed, hinting he might be eliminated. Unexpectedly, the good-tempered Jihu directly said it was his own mistake. Considering he might also need some money for a taxi, the careful Jihu even chased him to the door and handed him change from his wallet. In this way, Jihu learned his name. When Jin Yuan sat in the taxi, he subconsciously entered the number just now, and surprisingly for someone with such a poor memory, he could actually remember that string of digits. After sending several messages asking for Jihu's bank account number but never receiving a reply, he had no choice but to take a taxi there at night. Jin Yuan handed him the money and asked why he hadn't sent the account number. Jin Yuan was moved by the words he blurted out, and after receiving the change, Jihu took the opportunity to ask if he wanted to eat together. Considering it was only their second meeting, Jin Yuan refused. But when he reached the corner, he couldn't help turning back to look again. Thinking that the two of them might never meet again, Jin Yuan felt a little disappointed, but reason still pulled him away. Sitting inside the pharmacy, Jihu also looked desolate. After a moment of melancholy, he ran out to chase him, braving the heavy snow for a whole street. But in the end, the two still missed each other at the corner. That night, Jin Yuan carried snacks to his best friend's house to chat. Just then, the fried chicken arrived, and when he ran out to get it, he happened to run into Jiho. Shocked, he opened his mouth wide and hurriedly closed the door. For this misunderstanding, Jihu did not explain much. He turned around and slowly walked upstairs until he saw him. After closing the door, Jin Yuan finally realized it was a misunderstanding. When he went back, he couldn't wait to ask his best friend about Jiho upstairs. At the same time, Jihu received Jin Yuan's apology text message. Seeing his words, Jihu couldn't help but smile. When Jin Yuan left, the light snow was still falling, and just as he got into the taxi, he caught a glimpse of Jihu by the window. His attention and gaze made Jin Yuan very excited. Jihu was at home drinking wine and waiting to recover. When he saw the screen light up, without even having time to put on clothes, he rushed out of the house and ran straight to the pharmacy. Sure enough, Jin Yuan was standing outside waiting for him. Jihu's brief words instantly filled Jin Yuan's chest. He handed him a cup of hot tea, and sitting side by the window, both of them felt the heartbeat coming from each other. Although they carefully exchanged polite words, their hearts were surging with sparks of passion. Jin Yuan was once again touched by his words, but because of his own situation, he could only propose to be friends. Yet Jihu directly refused, saying he had no confidence in being able to get along with him naturally. Outside, the snow was still falling, but only Jihu was left sitting alone and desolate by the window. Back home, Jin Yuan also tossed and turned, staring at his phone for fear of missing Jiho's message. But for several days in a row, he didn't receive anything. He thought they would never meet again. Feeling low, he planned to go with his younger sister to watch a basketball game. When he stepped out and looked at the heavy snow filling the sky, he suddenly recalled his agreement with Jiho, and for a moment, he began to waver about those words he had once said about being friends. Yet fate is just this strange. As soon as Jin Yuan arrived at the basketball court and sat down, he spotted Jiho among the players of the opposing team. His gaze was instantly drawn to him, and when no one noticed, the two secretly exchanged glances several times. At the gathering afterward, the two sat facing each other. Jihu also kept paying attention to Jin Yuan's actions. When he saw that Jin Yuan's chopsticks had fallen and his boyfriend didn't care at all, Jihu immediately picked up a new pair and handed them to him, then naturally turned back to chat with his friends, unaware that such a small gesture had stirred waves in Jin Yuan's heart. During the meal, Jin Yuan went to the restroom and happened to encounter Jiho talking on the phone with his son. Knowing someone was inside, Jihu reached out and held Jin Yuan back, and only when Jin Yuan came out did he realize that Jihu had been waiting at the door the whole time. This inevitably raised Jin Yuan's favorability toward him again. Already shaken, Jin Yuan kept being pulled by Jihu's influence. During the meal, he even pushed away his boyfriend's hand, resting on his shoulder more than once. And when everyone was guessing Jiho's profession, Jin Yuan subconsciously blurted out that he worked at the pharmacy. Fortunately, Jihu brushed it off, saying it was because of what had just just been mentioned, which helped to dissolve everyone's suspicion. After dinner, a few of them went to sing karaoke. As the prelude played, two hands picked up the same microphone at the same time. It seemed they had chosen the same song. Just then, a phone call took Jiho away. When he returned, he whispered a few words into a friend's ear and then hurriedly left. Seeing him go, Jinwon instantly lost the interest to continue singing and cut off the song. For several days in a row, Jinwon still had no news of him. He wanted to take the initiative to contact him, but there was no suitable reason. At the same time, Jin Yuan's boyfriend, Ji Shuo, also, from his friend's mouth, Jinwon learned that Jiho was a godfather. Back then, when his girlfriend gave birth to the child, she passed away in a fire. And these past few days, he had been taking care of the sick child. Ji Shuo, upon hearing this news, expressed sympathy for Jihu, then added that no girl would ever like someone like him. But he didn't know that while in his eyes, Jiho seemed burdened by the child, in Jin Yuan's view, it was nothing at all. When Jin Yuan went to his best friend's house, he got off the car early and went again to the pharmacy. From across the street, he stared all the way until the doorway, and when the two finally met, Jin Yuan, being discovered, had to pretend to go in to buy medicine. Hearing his conversation with colleagues, Jin Yuan realized that Jihu had been taking care of his son, who had suddenly suffered from acute gastroenteritis. After Jihu left, Jin Yuan casually picked up a children's mask and paid. Later, the two sat in a cafe. Jihu told Jin Yuan that he had already sorted out his feelings toward him and that he didn't need to understand anymore. If they could always stay together, even under the name of friends, then it was fine. They reached a consensus on this. When sending Jin Yuan back, Jiho worried he would freeze, so he quickly ran to fetch the car. Sitting inside, he deliberately adjusted his breathing, afraid that the urgent panting would once again expose his feelings. After Jin Yuan got into the car, neither of them spoke again. Everything was obviously so heated, yet it was as if nothing had happened. That night, Ji Shuo came to his house again and raised the matter of marriage. Originally, Jin Yuan thought that after 4 years of dating, it was time for them to get married. But at this moment, his heart was full of struggle. Regarding marriage, he could only make excuses to put it off. On the weekend, Jihu took his son to play in the neighborhood. He originally wanted to use this chance to invite Jin Yuan out, but learned he was at work. Turning around, he couldn't wait and drove his son over. At the same time, Jin Yuan, upon receiving the news, suddenly panicked, his heart beating wildly in expectation of his arrival. Remembering the dinosaur he had seen in Jiho's car last time, he had specially gone to buy some dinosaur books for the child. Unexpectedly, when he came out, he happened to bump straight into Jiho's son. This was the first time Jihu heard his son mention his mother. Shocked, he then grew angry and harshly scolded him. Fortunately, Jin Yuan quickly stepped forward to stop him, and with the dinosaur picture book in his hands, he coaxed the teary-eyed boy. Jihu apologized to Jin Yuan, saying the child didn't understand. Unexpectedly, Jin Yuan insisted that Jiho must apologize to the boy. He said not to think that the child didn't understand anything because, in fact, the harm suffered in childhood would all leave scars when grown up. Hearing Jin Yuan's words, Jiho went to his son and apologized, but he didn't know that the scene of their separation had just been seen by Jin Yuan's best friend. That night at home, Jin Yuan unconsciously took out the children's mask he had mistakenly bought before and put it on several times. At this moment, Jihu just happened to send a thank you text message, making the corners of Jin Yuan's mouth rise uncontrollably. This love-struck scene was coincidentally captured by his younger sister raising her phone. Meanwhile, Jin Yuan's best friend, going out, happened to bump into Jiho returning home. Only then did he realize that the upstairs neighbor Jin Yuan had been asking about was him. Adding this to Jin Yuan's unusual smiling at his phone these past few days, he immediately sensed something. So he deliberately mentioned Jiho's name in front of Jin Yuan, not expecting Jin Yuan to nervously rush forward to stop him. That same night, Jin Yuan's boyfriend went to Jiho to buy some medicine to relieve stress, saying that his girlfriend had recently been very sensitive because of preparing for the wedding. Hearing this, for some reason, Jiho's mood suddenly became very bad. After Song Ji Shuo left, at that time, Jihu endured his discomfort and sent his blessings. Ji Shuo handed the nutrient supplements to Jin Yuan and casually mentioned Jihu's situation, saying that if back then Jihu had treated the girl a little better, maybe she wouldn't have left, and he wouldn't now be raising a child alone with no woman liking him. Jin Yuan's sudden anger made Ji Shuo feel uneasy, especially when he suggested staying overnight at Jin Yuan's place and was refused with the excuse that his younger sister was at home. Yet at that moment, he clearly saw Jin Yuan's sister leaving in a car. After rejecting his boyfriend for the first time, Jin Yuan called Jiho. Unexpectedly, the very first words he spoke were enough to make Jin Yuan's heart tremble slightly. Then Jihu, in a proud tone, said that this voice was just barely acceptable to listen to, which made Jin Yuan laugh. In his memory, this was also the first time Jihu had ever joked. Just a few sentences made the ambiguous feelings between them boil to the extreme. But then another call came in for Jin Yuan, forcing them to end the conversation, leaving Jihu alone in disappointment, leaning on the chair. In the past, he had been excellent, never letting his parents worry. But after becoming a single father, the humorous and lively Jihu no longer existed. While drinking with friends, he couldn't help but pour out his feelings. Hearing this, his friend instantly realized something was wrong. It seemed this man, who had repressed himself to the extreme, now had someone he liked, yet he wouldn't admit it. Finally, under the influence of alcohol, Jihu gathered the courage to call Jin Yuan, who was dining across the street. Jin Yuan was shocked by his blunt words. Jihu said said he would not cross the line again, but his actions clearly didn't match his words. Jin Yuan understood that this sentence wasn't only for Jihoo, but also a warning to himself. Returning to his seat, Jin Yuan looked out the window with teary eyes, realizing that their mutual affection could no longer be covered under the name of friends. Perhaps out of guilt, the next day he even went to pick up his boyfriend after work. During dinner, Ji Shuo clearly noticed something unusual about Jin Yuan, as their interactions had been very scarce lately. Normally quick to retort, Jin Yuan remained silent this time. Although he soon answered no when his boyfriend repeatedly pressed for confirmation, he nervously clutched the tablecloth with his hands. On the weekend, Jihoo went to the library and hid behind the shelves, secretly watching Jin Yuan. His eyes were full of him, focused on his serious work. At that moment, Jin Yuan looked up and saw Jihoo's brows and eyes waiting with a smile. Though nothing had happened, when they met eyes, Jin Yuan panicked like a child who had done something wrong. Excited, Jin Yuan searched row after row of shelves for his figure, but suddenly Ji Shuo appeared and pulled him away. Seeing the two meet, Jihoo could only hide behind the shelves and not come out. Later, when Jin Yuan contacted him, the two quarreled fiercely because of it. Jin Yuan questioned him about where he had been, but Jihoo did not answer. On the way back, the three of them met at a red light. Ji Shuo warmly greeted Jihoo and sighed at the coincidence of meeting him here. Standing to the side, the guilty Jin Yuan didn't respond. Ji Shuo drove Jin Yuan downstairs. Originally, he had said he would go up to sit for a while, but when he heard Jin Yuan say his sister was coming back, Ji Shuo said to forget it. Ji Shuo believed he was deliberately making excuses, but Jin Yuan didn't want to say anything more. Just like that, the two parted unhappily. After arriving home, Jin Yuan called his elder sister, his face still carrying faint traces of tears. His sister immediately pointed out the truth, yet he did not blame her, instead saying, "When you did that, you must have had a reason that left you no choice." After the day at the library, both Jin Yuan and Jihoo missed each other, but neither dared to contact Rashly. Until one day, Jin Yuan discovered that his younger sister had taken the supplements Ji Shuo had given their parents and given them away, which just happened to provide him a reason to reach out to Jihoo. At that time, Jihoo was eating with Ji Shuo and a few others when he received the message. Jihoo instinctively lied, and both of them hurried toward the pharmacy. Jihoo arrived first. He wanted to disguise himself as if he was working, but realized his white coat was still at home. After days of silent conflict, both sides were especially easy to talk to. While Jihoo was taking out the keys, Jin Yuan received a call from Ji Shuo. It turned out that one of their friends from the gathering, Chi Feng, wanted to see the pretty sister-in-law. But although the two of them were still in the middle of a quarrel, Ji Shuo, out of vanity, said they were about to get married. He proposed that Jin Yuan come over and sit with them, but Jin Yuan firmly refused. Unwilling to give up, he said, "Then I'll come to your house to find you." Faced with repeated refusals, Ji Shuo felt a bit embarrassed. At this moment, Jihoo unexpectedly handed Jin Yuan a slip of paper. Before leaving, Jihoo couldn't help but want to speak openly, but every time he was about to say something, the construction noise outside interrupted. In the end, the two couldn't hold back and both laughed, and even though Jihoo hadn't said it aloud, Jin Yuan still knew what he wanted to say. In the car, the two began to open up to each other. Jihoo apologized, saying he shouldn't have pushed away responsibility and left all the choices to him, making himself appear so proper, but Jin Yuan thought it was his own recklessness, always trampling over things with unreasonable excuses like today. He said, "Anyway, meeting you really makes me happy." Jihoo said he would try his best to restrain himself, and as long as he was allowed to see him, it was enough. He promised he would never be discovered. Although they clearly expressed their love for each other, Jin Yuan's situation still did not allow him to take another step forward. At dinner that day, his boyfriend once again brought up marriage. In his eyes, their frequent quarrels over trivial matters were frustrating, and his rational solution was to use marriage as a way to escape their problems. But after just a few words, another argument broke out. Angry, for the first time, Jin Yuan mentioned the attitude of both families. It turned out that Ji Shuo's father had always disapproved of the marriage, disdaining Jin Yuan's family background, and even suggesting that his son go on a blind date with Zhang Yuan's daughter. On this matter, Ji Shuo had always maintained an ambiguous attitude. On the other hand, Jin Yuan's father hoped his daughter would marry soon and had hinted many times but always ended up ignored. It was under such contradictions that Ji Shuo kept clamoring about marriage but never discussed conditions with him. Once again, the two parted unhappily. Just then, Jin Yuan's mother came to him and asked why he had not married yet. She couldn't help but sigh, saying that human emotions simply cannot be controlled by oneself. It was on this very day that Jin Yuan had the thought of breaking up. He knew this relationship had truly reached its end. Acting on impulse, after work he ran straight to Jihoo's house. Jihoo blamed him, saying he shouldn't have come. His words grew harsher and harsher until an angry Jin Yuan directly covered his mouth with his hand. Seeing Jin Yuan crying bitterly, Jihoo panicked, not knowing in what capacity he should comfort him. So he offered to take Jin Yuan out to eat. Just to spend more time together, after the meal, Jihoo accompanied him to eat noodles again, and Jin Yuan also didn't stop there. And afterward, he suggested going for coffee together. Jihoo said that now he restrained himself every day, not daring to act according to his feelings for Jin Yuan, afraid that once he started, he wouldn't be able to stop, and even more afraid that stepping forward, Jihoo said that if he went forward, it would only make Jin Yuan suffer more, so he asked Jin Yuan to help him by not coming to find him again. He said the two of them should just be ordinary friends, occasionally greeting each other, and that would be enough. Ji-hoo sent Jin Yuan home, but he couldn't help standing in front of the car, watching his back and unwilling to leave. How much he wished he could boldly love the person in front of him, yet he didn't have the confidence to give Jin Yuan the happiness he wanted. Just then, they ran into Jin Yuan's younger sister and their friend, Yingzai. The sister warmly invited them upstairs for tea. While waiting for the elevator, Jin Yuan heard this news. On the surface, he pretended to be very resistant, but as soon as he turned around, he ran home as fast as possible to clean the room. After the three entered, the sister suggested having a few light drinks and went out with Yingzai to buy alcohol. Suddenly, only the two of them were left in the room, and the atmosphere became a little delicate. They both looked at each other and giggled. At this moment, Ji-sho called, and Ji-hoo, a little embarrassed, consciously avoided. Ji-hoo had intended to remind him not to act on impulse, but Jin Yuan took a step back and expressed his resolve. Seeing this, Ji-hoo silently walked out the door. On the other end of the phone, Ji-sho kept apologizing, thinking Jin Yuan was still angry from their last quarrel. He did not realize that his parents' attitude and his long-standing inaction had already broken Jin Yuan's heart. Even though he tried hard to explain and wanted to make things right, Jin Yuan no longer gave him a chance and directly hung up the call. He called Ji-hoo back inside and told him that proposing a breakup wasn't because of him. But Ji-hoo wasn't as happy as imagined. Regarding his relationship with Jin Yuan in the future, he still didn't know how to get along. When buying alcohol and returning, the sister learned from Yingzai's mouth that Ji-hoo had someone he liked, so taking advantage of the alcohol, she questioned him. At this moment, Ji-hoo received a call from his son. Seeing this, Jin Yuan asked him to go into the bedroom. Thinking about his messy room, he hurried inside to tidy it up. Meanwhile, little En-yu on the other side seemed to sense something and insisted on hearing Jin Yuan's voice. Ji-hoo scolded him for being disobedient, but Jin Yuan reached out, signaling that he would take the call. Hearing Jin Yuan's voice, En-yu quickly calmed down. Watching Jin Yuan lovingly coax En-yu, Ji-hoo couldn't hide the emotion in his heart. Just after the two had soothed En-yu, Ji-shuo came again at the wrong time. Seeing it was him, Jin Yuan told his sister to stay inside the house. Ji-shuo, unwilling to give up, thought that by meeting in person he could coax her back, but Jin Yuan, determined, gave him no good face at all. Inside the house, Ji-hoo nervously paid attention to the doorway. Hearing the quarrel, the sister anxiously came out to check, but accidentally kicked out Ji-hoo's shoes. Jin Yuan quickly sent his sister away and cleaned up the mess before going back inside. Seeing the mood was off and the drinking session couldn't continue, the sister suggested ending it and offered to see them off. Ji-hoo walked at the back, and before leaving, he patted Jin Yuan's shoulder to give comfort. That night, both of them sat by their beds, each with their own worries, unable to sleep. On the weekend, Ji-hoo came to pick up a friend, intending to drink and pour out his feelings. Unfortunately, he happened to run into Ji-shuo. Seeing Ji-hoo's shoes, the very pair that had appeared at Jin Yuan's house that night, Ji-shuo decisively stepped forward and joined their drinking table. At the dining table, he tried probing with a question, but Ji-hoo openly admitted that he had indeed stayed at Jin Yuan's house with a friend that night. Hearing this, Ji-shuo couldn't help but laugh at his own assumptions. After all, he considered himself handsome and from a wealthy background, while Ji-hoo was just an ordinary pharmacist and even a single father. How could his girlfriend ever choose such a man? Meanwhile, Jin Yuan learned that the two were having a meal together. Worried about Ji-hoo, he was about to call, but his younger sister stopped him. She knew the two liked each other, but since Jin Yuan hadn't completely broken up with Ji-shuo yet, exposing their relationship now would make it even harder to separate. So she told Jin Yuan to call the Ji-shuo first and test the waters. Unexpectedly, this gave Ji-shuo blind confidence, making him think Jin Yuan wanted to reconcile. Ji-shuo's showing off became too obvious, which made Ji-hoo irritated. This was the first time the usually gentle Ji-hoo lost his composure. Even though he knew Jin Yuan had asked him to stay away for his sake, Ji-shuo happily came to Jin Yuan's house for dinner. But at the table, he mocked Ji-hoo's background and kept belittling him for being a single father. Before Jin Yuan could refute, his younger sister could no longer bear to listen. When leaving, Ji-shuo thought he had gained Jin Yuan's forgiveness and embraced him deeply, promising that he would love him well in the future. Afterward, the sister hugged Jin Yuan, telling him that as long as he was happy, she would support him no matter what he chose. The next day, after finishing a basketball game, the two love rivals went to dinner together in Ji-shuo's car. Ji-hoo intended to brush things off, but just then, Jin Yuan called. Ji-hoo hadn't planned to answer, but Ji-shuo egged him on, saying he should pick it up. Those words stirred Ji-hoo's competitiveness, and he answered, saying he had just finished playing. Jin Yuan realized he was with Ji-shuo and instinctively wanted to hang up. Although Ji-hoo's tone was domineering, Jin Yuan still hung up, leaving them both upset. At a red light, Ji-hoo suddenly got out of the car. Not knowing the truth, Ji-shuo even went on to brag about the incident in front of his teammates. On the other side, Ji-hoo directly took a taxi to Jin Yuan's building. The two of them sat on a bench and analyzed their relationship. For now, they couldn't immediately be together, but neither could bear to let go. Ji-hoo said he would always wait for him, which deeply moved Jin Yuan. He was about to step into the elevator, but couldn't help turning back to follow Ji-hoo. Jin Yuan said he would handle everything and then come to his side, never allowing anyone or anything to hurt him again. Hearing such a promise and confession, the long-restrained Ji-hoo could no longer control himself and stepped forward to embrace Jin Yuan. Jin Yuan resolved to officially break up with Ji-shuo, but Ji-shuo made excuses about work and didn't come. It seemed that in their 4 years of dating, whenever something came up, Ji-shuo's first thought was always to cancel his plans with Jin Yuan. Even when Jin Yuan was sick, he had never never been put first. Even his attempt to reconcile now was only driven by pride. Until one day, when Jihoo once again brought his son to read books, Jin Yuan was preparing a few books when he suddenly received a message from Ji Shuo saying he was at the door. Anxious, Jin Yuan hurried to find Jihoo and wanted him to leave through the emergency exit. This touched Jihoo's deepest sore point. To him, it didn't matter how he himself was treated, but he could not accept that his child would also have to lower his head. As expected, Jihoo, who was taking Enyu away, happened to run right into Ji Shuo. Inside the house, Jin Yuan looked down at the sticker Enyu had left in his hand. His eyes read as he realized he had made a mistake. He wanted to chase after them to explain, but instead saw Ji Shuo coming in. At this moment, Jin Yuan's feelings were completely exposed. After apologizing to Ji Shuo, he quickly rushed out after Jihoo, but unfortunately, he was still one step too late and couldn't catch up. When Ji Shuo came out afterward, even he, no matter how foolish, finally understood the truth of the situation. His suspicions had now become reality. Ji Shuo went to find Jihoo. The two indeed needed to talk. Beforehand, Jihoo had already gotten Jin Yuan's permission to speak openly, and so he told Ji Shuo everything, from the beginning of their acquaintance until now. Ji Shuo challenged Jihoo, confidently believing that Jin Yuan only pitied him. In these 4 years of relationship, neither he nor Jin Yuan had ever thought about breaking up, but it was precisely this comfort and complacency that made them start ignoring each other's feelings. They thought that even if they got angry, things would be fine again the next day, always accommodating this kind of love. Jin Yuan was deeply disheartened by that version of himself. Even after Jin Yuan had said all this, Ji Shuo still believed their breakup was because of Jihoo. In his words, he mocked Jihoo's identity as a single father, saying that he himself was the son of an entrepreneur, while Jihoo had nothing. He claimed he was only trying to stop Jin Yuan from becoming unhappy, but Jin Yuan told him he was sorry, that he no longer loved him, yet had continued pretending to love him. Afterward, Jin Yuan became even more certain of his feelings. He went to Jihoo and told him that something big had happened to him. Saying those words made Jin Yuan feel relieved, but unexpectedly, after hearing them, Jihoo immediately ran out of the cafe and stood by the roadside crying. From that day on, Jin Yuan and Jihoo began dating, while his father, unaware, was still urging Jin Yuan to hurry and get married. Knowing he had caused a big mess this time, Jin Yuan knelt before his father when he returned home. This was the first time Jin Yuan had ever defied his father. He told him that Ji Shuo was not the one he truly wanted to marry, and openly said that what he wanted was someone warm. His father scolded him, saying he was talking nonsense. But no matter what his father said, Jin Yuan no longer listened. When the two sisters had just arrived home, Jin Yuan received a message from Jihoo downstairs. He immediately turned and ran down, throwing himself into Jihoo's arms. The two went to a restaurant for a meal together, but unfortunately, their meeting was seen by Ji Shuo's friend. That friend immediately told him, and Ji Shuo hurriedly drove over, running right into the two of them. Although Jin Yuan had already mentioned breaking up many times, Ji Shuo still refused to let go. His words completely angered Jihoo, who rushed forward and grabbed Ji Shuo by the collar, finally exploding after enduring for so long. Fortunately, this time, their friends arrived in time to pull the two apart. After this incident, Ji Shuo became more and more unscrupulous. He used the threat of Jin Yuan's father's retirement position as leverage, insisting on forcing him to marry him. For this, he even went specifically to find Jihoo. Ji Shuo bluntly admitted that he never truly wanted to reconcile with Jin Yuan. He just didn't want to lose to Jihoo. On the other side, Ji Shuo's father convened a personnel meeting of the group, but deliberately did not invite Jin Yuan's father. Ji Shuo's father deliberately mentioned in front of many colleagues that his son was going to have a blind date with a counselor's daughter. Jin Yuan's father realized this was intentionally meant to embarrass him, and awakening to the truth, he also began to deliberately distance himself from Ji Shuo's father. On the weekend, the two of them took Enyu to the suburbs to play. The sight of them looking like a family of 3 made Jihoo feel unreal. Jin Yuan noticed his change, stood up, and ran to whisper something into Enyu's ear. "You did well," his voice calm but firm, repeating over and over. "You did well, you did well, you did well." The phrase echoed softly again and again, not only filling Enyu's ears, but also sinking deep into her heart. That simple encouragement carried a weight that made the moment feel alive, strong, and unforgettable. And with a heart-melting hug, the story came to its end.